Hello and welcome to Called Bang Sports. Thanks for joining us for our weekly episode. This Dale can't do it this weekend, and this is going to be the first time in a while that I have done a solo episode, not for a post-game recap. So please stay with me here. We're going to be a hopefully not a learning experience, but we're going to see how well I can do. So the Utah Jazz last night were able to have a pretty good game, in my opinion, against the Toronto Raptors once you read the injury report. And I was not expecting this last night. Now, once I saw that Rudy Gobert had entered COVID protocol, and I was not sure when Hassan Whiteside was coming back, I was really concerned for Utah as a whole, since Utah really only has the two guys who can play solid center minutes for the whole game. So yeah, we have Doak, and we've got to see a lot more of Doak this week, but I'm not super confident in that. Now, if Mike Conley's out for a game or Donovan Mitchell is out for a game, I'm a lot more confident in somebody else like Joe or Bojan to either pick up some of the ball handling or pick up some of the scoring load. So I am concerned for Rudy Gobert. I'm not only concerned to see how long he's out, I'm also concerned to see how long it takes him to come back. Is he going to have some residual effects that cause issues and make it so he's not able to play at peak performance right when he gets back? I definitely think that's a valid concern to have, especially how I believe he had the first game he sat out when it was listed as a non-COVID illness. I think he had a fever of 102. So this definitely isn't, Rudy Gobert just having an asymptomatic case of COVID and because of that not being able to play. Like, he's been sick and hopefully he's going to be fine. And obviously I hope that for a lot more than basketball reasons. Like, if he's healthy and I guess could never play a game again, that would be better, but I think that's that's a bit too doom and gloom. I went a bit too far there. But last night, the injury report, I'm sure most of you have seen it. You had Joe Ingles and Rudy Gobert both in health and safety protocol. Malik Fitz out with a wrist injury. Royce O'Neal was questionable. And, I apologize. I'm reading today's. Let me quickly read yesterday's. So you had Rudy Gay, who was also out for right heel injury recovery. Jordan Clarkson out for lower back tightness. Royce O'Neal out for right patellar tendonitis. I'm sure I butchered that. And then Mike Conley out just for rest. Bojan out for a left middle finger sprain, and Donovan Mitchell out for his left low back strain. So if I had to say what the Jazz did last night, I do think these players were beat up, and I do think that they deserved a break. I do definitely think the Jazz basically forfeited the game. Now, that's not what you would have thought when you looked at the score after the first quarter with the Jazz up 15, and after the second quarter with the Jazz up 12 or 13 going into the break. Now, eventually they just ran out of energy. You have Fred VanVleet on the Raptors, who had an absolutely amazing game. He ended up with 37 points. I think 23 or 24 of those came in the third quarter when they mounted the run. And you had you had 8 players on the Raptors see significant minutes compared to also 8 on the Jazz. But you have Pascal, who probably isn't his conditioning probably isn't super great. I mean, he's been home with his child and with that, and so probably not the best for him. You have Hughes, who again probably wasn't expecting to play 41 minutes. But overall, like, I was really happy to see these young guys come out, these players who don't get to see a lot of minutes. I think the only rotation player for the Jazz last night who played was Whiteside. Forrest sees a tiny bit of the rotation, but not enough for me to really count that. So yeah, this was a game where the Jazz went out and they did the best they could. You had Butler and Pele, really only Butler, who played 32 minutes and was in the positive. Everyone else was in the negative, but it was nice to see the young guys, nice to see them get some minutes and to see how much heart they have. I'm probably running in circles at this point, but it was a fun game. Disappointed that the Jazz lost, but I don't think any Jazz fan really expected them to win. Now, they gave them some glimmers of hope, at some points in the game. But the biggest thing that really caused that loss last night ended up being total turnovers at 21 for the Jazz to 9 for the Raptors. And that resulted in the Jazz getting up 81 shots last night to the Raptors 100. So when you look at it from that perspective, and the fact that the Raptors got 7 more free throws than the Jazz, it would have been really, you just have guys who aren't ball handlers, who are out there trying to handle the ball in the NBA against a team who, has fallen from grace since they've won the championship, but still has really good players in the Toronto Raptors. They're a talented team. They're fun to watch. And frankly, especially when this is partway through a road trip, I mean, it's not a bad loss for the Jazz. And I don't really think anyone's looking at it that way. What it is concerning, what concerns me about this game is what's going to happen with Utah in regards to COVID. We know that the state as a whole keeps seeing, I believe, record highs every day. We know that the Omicron variant is here in the state, and it is causing a lot of people to get sick and test positive. And frankly, I expect to see more Jazz players end up missing games for COVID. So these next 2 to 3 weeks are going to be rough. It will be interesting to see how the Jazz end up handling it. So I'm going to pull up their schedule really quick, and we can just kind of talk about what they have and what they're looking at, and how I personally think they're going to fare during this next really challenging stretch. Sorry, it looks like it's going to take a minute for my computer to load. I should have had this pulled up sooner. But I do know that the Jazz are playing the Pacers tonight. Obviously, I think that's a game that they want to win. The last game was all of the drama with the multiple ejections, and the Jazz just playing a bad game overall. And I do think that they'll probably be able to win that game. Indiana has just been having an absolutely terrible year all season. That's followed by Detroit on Monday. I think that'll be a win. Then you start getting into some of the iffy games. You have Cleveland, followed by Denver, who's probably going to be healthier than they were the last time we saw them. The Lakers, who are terrible this year, but if all of a sudden the Jazz are missing 3 or 4 rotation guys with COVID, that's rough. Then you have Houston and Detroit, again, leading into Friday, January 21st. And then the real stretch that I'm hoping we have healthy Jazz for, not just everyone playing, but everyone in shape and ready to go. It is Sunday, January 23rd at Golden State, Monday, January 24th at Phoenix, Wednesday, January 26th. Phoenix is going to be here in Utah, Friday, January 28th at Memphis. So those 4 games are going to be really big. They're the other top 4 teams in the Western Conference, and the Jazz are going to have to pick up that win against Golden State, at least split with Phoenix, and pick up that win against Memphis. The Jazz need tie breaks there. And while I don't know if the Memphis tie break will be as important if they're dropping a lot of games going into that game, it is going to be a big one. So hopefully we're going to have the Jazz at full strength. But I am interested to see what happens in the month of January. And possibly things are going to go well. Possibly the Jazz are going to get lucky with COVID and only have Joe Ingles and Rudy Gobert test positive. I don't think that will be the case. I'm hopeful it will be the case, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. So right now, all we can hope for is that the Jazz do the best they can, and remember that you're going to have to play really hard teams in the playoffs. When you look at the top 8 teams right now in the West, there are teams that are going to give the Jazz a challenge come playoff time. I don't think there's going to be one of the, maybe, the 7 and 8 slots are going to be easy wins, but that's not really, I don't think that's going to happen. If I'll look at the 538 end of season projections, and they have the 5 seed as the Mavericks, who have been really rough, but this season. But, Luka Doncic is good, and he can take over a playoff series. He did it last year against the Clippers. You have the Nuggets, who I don't think we're going to expect to see Porter Jr. back for that series. Excuse me, I have something in my throat. Let me grab a drink. Who I don't think we're going to see Porter Jr. in that series, but we're probably going to see Jamal Murray play. So again, really good team right there. The T-Wolves, who I'm not super concerned about. Obviously, they have some really talented guys, but that's not a concerning team for me. And the Clippers sneaking in at 8 at the end of the season, which it's looking like Kawhi Leonard's going to be back. So again, that's going to be a scary team to have down there at the 8th seed. And then you have the Lakers and Trailblazers rounding off the play-in tournament at 9 and 10. And again, both of those teams have been atrocious this year. But they have talented guys and things could happen. They could make moves at the deadline, or, LeBron James could just have an amazing series. And if Davis gets back to how he's looked at points throughout the last couple seasons, that's going to be a challenge. So the playoffs in the West are going to be an absolute gauntlet this year. And frankly, with injuries, who knows? Maybe it's best for the Jazz to have the 3 seed and not the 1 seed. I don't know how much home court advantage is really going to matter comparing to if you get the 1 seed, but you play the Clippers in the first round. That's going to be rough. That would actually be the most depressing thing if the Jazz lost to the Clippers in the first round. If they won, it would be awesome. But if they lost, that would be a very disappointing way to go about it. So looking forward at these next, 4 months of the season, I really have no predictions. I am definitely concerned about how the Jazz played against the Warriors. I talked about that in the post game. The Jazz couldn't beat the Suns last year. Now, I again will stand by the fact that they played 3 times and that 2 of those times the Jazz were not at near full strength. And one of those times the game went to overtime. So I think they're closer than people think, but I mean, confidence is key. And the Suns probably think they're better than the Jazz. So that will help them play really well in those games. So there's a lot to look forward to. And needless to say, the rest of the regular season is not going to be a walk in the park. Last season, it was pretty much, will the Jazz grab the 1 seed? And they ended up doing it. And it was more the anticipation of if missing Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley for that long stretch would cause them to lose the 1 seed. Well, this season, are the Jazz even going to be healthy enough to keep home court advantage? I think they will be, but if all of a sudden Donovan's lower back injury turns out to be something worse, and he's out for a month, who knows what's going to happen there? If the Jazz are missing players due to COVID over the next 3-4 weeks, again, who knows what's going to happen there? We have seen that the Jazz need their core rotation and that they really struggle picking up wins against good teams without it. And those are the important games that I really want to see. I want to see how the Jazz fare off against playoff teams, against not just playoff teams, but teams that are championship contenders like the Warriors, like the Suns, like the Bucks, like the Nets. And I hope that we get to watch the Jazz play those games at full strength rather than having to watch and think, maybe they would have won if Whiteside had been able to play. If Donovan hadn't been out, they would have been able to win. And I'd like to get the test now rather than have to wait later. So last thing I wanted to get into really quick was kind of the playoff predictions and end of season predictions from 538 and from Basketball Reference. So 538 puts the Jazz at getting the 2 seed behind the Suns, losing the tiebreak, it looks like. But they give the Jazz a 36% chance of making the Western Conference Finals and a 22% chance of winning the title. The only team with a higher chance, that's a 36% chance of making the finals, not the Western Conference Finals. The only team with a higher chance in each of those categories is the Milwaukee Bucks at 44% for the finals and 26% for winning them. So obviously, 538 is a pretty good site. They're definitely not always as accurate as I think they could be, but I mean, it's percentage chances, right? Like something else could happen. They're not guaranteeing a Bucks win. So looking at this site, feel really good about the Jazz's possibilities. And while I have concerns from watching them, it is nice to know that analytics are backing them up here. Now, if you go over to Basketball Reference, they give the highest chance to win the finals to Golden State at 25.3% at 25.3, and the second highest at the Utah Jazz with 24.4, followed by the Suns at 16.7. And so here's where I start questioning Basketball Reference a little bit. When you look at the team with the fourth highest chance to win the finals and the highest chance in the Eastern Conference. And that is the Cleveland Cavaliers at 13.6%. Now, I do think that Basketball Reference, from my understanding, is a lot more stats-based in their approach, while 538 is a lot more player-based. And so that's why teams like the Bucks on 538, who have Giannis, are going to fare a lot better than a team that might be better composed in the Cleveland Cavaliers, but don't necessarily have the sufficient star power, in my opinion, to win a finals. I would love to see the Cavaliers make it to the finals. Don't get me wrong. I think that would be awesome to see them do it with a bunch of ragtag guys. I'm pretty sure guaranteed rookie of the year at this point in Evan Mobley, be able to do that. I think that would be great. But from a prediction standpoint, from the numbers-based sites in Basketball Reference and 538, the Jazz have a really good chance of doing some great things this year. They still definitely need to work some things out. They need to improve their defense, and they need to be able to find ways to, when other teams pull Rudy Gobert out of the paint, to guard on the perimeter, which he does amazing at, to stop the other players being guarded by other Jazzmen from getting into the paint and just having an easy bucket. Since I don't necessarily, trust Donovan or Mike or Bogey to guard someone from the 3-point line all the way to the hoop. And that's why having Gobert in the key is so important to what Utah does. And when teams like the Clippers are able to pull him out, he either guards someone on the outside and they beat someone else to the hoop, or Gobert comes in to help at the hoop and they kick it out. And if the other player's on fire and is able to make threes, the Jazz have a hard chance of winning that game, have a low chance of winning that game. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope that this went well. Talking to a camera by yourself can be challenging at times, but I've really enjoyed it. So again, we really appreciate you for watching us. Please leave a comment. We love to keep the discussion going. Leave a like and please follow. We are pushing for 500 and we would love to get to 500 here soon. So thanks again and go Jazz.